Yo, what's good? Signing in. Yo, I'm going to get a little bit of background information on this record, to be honest, so hold on for 1 second. But it's me, your boy. I'm dropping in for another little review, yeah? I just listened to The Who, My Generation, so the debut LP by the British Invasion legends, Le Who, alright? Yo, let me find this info. So, let's see what we can find, yeah, before I delve into my personal opinion and my experience with this record, yeah? So The Who are an English rock band formed in '64. Core lineup consists, and the core lineup existed on this record, Roger Daltrey as the vocalist, guitarist Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend was writing the main number of tunes on this record. There was a couple of covers, but Townsend wrote the majority, and I have had requests to check out The Who purely based on Pete Townsend's songwriting capabilities, as I like a good songwriter, Bassist John Entwistle and drummer Keith Moon, right? They sold over 100 million records worldwide. And their contributions to rock music include the development of the Marshall stack, large PA systems, and the use of synthesizer. That's interesting, isn't it? Alright, let's skip the nonsense. Let's see if we can find info on this one record. Man, Wikipedia's got a ton of info on this act. Right, My Generation, here we go. So, it's the debut studio record, released in '65, so this was only 1 year after the formation of the band. It was put out by Brunswick Records in the UK and Festival Records in Australia. In the US, it was released in '66 by Decca, a Goliath record label, right? The Who sings, as The Who sings My Generation with a different cover and a slightly altered track listings, alright? The album features contributions by session musicians Nicky Hopkins. Now, Nicky Hopkins really adds an incredible element to the band, twinkling away on the piano. When the tunes with Nicky Hopkins reveal themselves as you're listening through to the record, you think, wow, this is a great sound. If anything, I think Nicky Hopkins should have been in the band, because the twinkling pianos really add an incredible emphasis, more so than they should do, to be honest with you. The album was made immediately after The Who got their first singles on the chart, so I don't know who was behind The Who to push them straight away. According to the booklet in the deluxe edition, it was later dismissed by the band as something of a rush job that did not accurately represent their stage performance at the time. While it didn't sell as well as later albums, peaking at number 5 on the UK charts and failing to chart in the US, critics have since retrospectively rated it as one of the best rock albums of all time, especially in its hard sound, unusual for the time, and presaging various hard rock styles such as punk and heavy metal. Right, cool, so that takes me on to my train of thought. When I was listening to this record, especially as we got later on in the record, I did start hearing precursors of what could be considered heavy metal and punk rock. There was a aggressive style. When it comes to My Generation, the title track, that's a punk rock tune to me. I've heard that tune prior to this record, by the way. I was a fan of that tune. I had it in one of my rock and roll playlists, you know what I mean? Walking down the street, feel like a badass playlist. My Generation was on there. So I completely agree as far as punk rock is concerned. The record came with an attitude, an audacity, and a tempo that certainly makes me think there is no doubt in my mind that some of the earlier punk rock bands were a fan of the Who and their atmosphere, their character, their emphasis on what they created. Let's have a look at the track listing, right? So there was 12 tunes on this record at a relatively short play time. I don't know the overall amount of time the album spans over, but, we're averaging about, I'd say about 2 minutes 50 to 3 minutes per song, yeah? Keith Moon, it feels like Keith Moon on this record was reeling back the drum playing. On some records, he was letting it fly a little more. He was being a bit more eccentric, a bit more Keith Moon-esque. But overall, it seems like he was a little more straight with it. He just did his job, and he did his job well. And if anything, actually, there was a couple of numbers where his playing was of a different dynamic to the general tone of the song. So we'd have like a nice little love song or a great melodic song. Keith Moon would sort of be a bit extra for it. And I say that in a way which I kind of felt it was unique, but it took away from what the song should have been. So there was a bit of balance when it came to that. There were some great melodies, some great hooks. One song in particular, which I don't remember, the guy obviously must have been influenced, Townsend must have been influenced by Dylan, because he had a very Dylan-esque approach to things, alright? Great parallel to the Beatles, as to which I learned, as far as the British invasion was concerned, any rock band, 64, 65, potentially verging into 66, all sort of shared the same songwriting elements. Apparently the Stones sounded a lot the same as well, but, you know, they all had different characteristics. The front cover was really good, because it gave me an insight to the band's style and influence as far as, you know, the aesthetic of the act and how they influence people aesthetically. Really well dressed, really good looking bunch of individuals, you know what I mean? And it had me thinking, you didn't necessarily see any overweight individuals in bands, or at least in popular bands, back in this period. I come from a world of metal and alternate and, you know, punk rock music, as to where having an overweight fella in the band is like completely natural and normal, and if anything, that's cooler for some of these metalheads, you know what I mean? Because it gives them a bit of a tough guy approach. Whereas The Who, in shape, skinny fellas, all well dressed, really well put together outfits, well groomed with the hairstyles and so forth, which I think is really cool. They had a cool aesthetic to them, which matched the music very well. Heavy blues element, heavy rock and roll element. Couple of covers on the records, which I don't know the original. One of them by Bo Diddley and the other one by James Brown. I don't know them tunes, so I can't comment as to whether they have given those acts justice in covering them songs. And yeah, overall it was an half decent record. Now, the sound as a whole doesn't appeal to me, because I'm not the biggest 60s fan, in all honesty. It sounds a bit ancient to me. It's good quality music, but it's a sign of the times, and I appreciate the slightest of attitude that they have given on this record, but it's not the attitude that then came, you know, the rock stars of the 70s and the badass sort of, you know, glam of the 80s, which is where I feel comfortable within as far as the connection and the communication with the artist identity. So that was it, The Who. I think they came across as a lot cooler than the Beatles. The Beatles, good songwriters, but as far as who they were as characters or put themselves out to be on the artwork and so forth, a little bit soft, you know what I mean? The Stones, badass. The Who, I'll put them in as badass. And that's about it for the most part. I mean, me looking back into this band's discography, which is going to hurt some feelings in regards to, you know, fans of The Who, because I know they tend to scream internally when it's brought up, but it's kind of been shrouded. I mean, this is honest, this is my review. It's been shrouded by the accusations that got made against one of the members of the band in regards to a particular situation that came about not so long back. Well, relative to the band's career at least. Me having an entryway into the band via that information, for the most part, it makes me approach the band in a different manner, as if I can't really let the band's influence and sound connect to me as well. That's a subconscious thing, because, you know, I'm predisposed with particular, principles. And I know you can say, you know what I mean, any excuse, this and that. At the end, he did what he did, so that's my opinion. It finishes on a big finale entitled The Ox, which is a big, powerful instrumental finale, and given it's an instrumental finale, they tend to be soft and wind the band down, wind the album down to finish it off, or it's a big epic song. These dudes just completely flipped it on its head and had a big epic instrumental, as to where we just built up and built up and built up and exploded essentially. And that was very unique in itself, because we don't tend to hear such powerful, accentuated, concentrated power as an instrumental on the end of a record. And that's about it for me. You know, in regards to my personal taste, of course back in the day it's going to be something special, but in regards to my personal taste, I'll give this record a 3.5 out of 10. Because I'm not a fan of the 60s, first and foremost. I'm not a fan of the sound. I don't go out of my way to listen to these sounds. As far as the 60s are concerned, I'd rather have something a little more soulful on, put on a bit of Motown or something. And that's it for me. You know what I mean? British Invasion hasn't sold itself to me at this moment in time, so That's my final review and rating, and until next time, I'm signing out, people. Peace.